episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, late Sunday night, a transfer portal commitment for us Michigan fans. Kind of a diamond in the rough here. Division II All-American offensive lineman Lawrence Hattar from Ferris State committing to Michigan. I spent the last 30 minutes, Google, YouTube, message boards, trying to find about as much information as I could about this kid. And Dill, we did find the national championship game that he played in at the Division II ranks a couple of weeks ago. Want to get into what he brings to Michigan, but I want to start with this. If there's one coach that I trust to evaluate offensive line play just about as good as anybody in the country, it's Sherrone Moore. And there's no doubt in my mind, Sherrone Moore has known this kid since he's been probably 16 years old. This is a Michigan kid that played his high school ball in Michigan. I'm sure was on campus for Michigan multiple times when he was at high school, camping with Michigan, working out in the summers. There's probably a familiarity with this Michigan staff that we are probably not aware of. And although maybe he was not a Michigan caliber kid coming out of high school, now you're talking about a Division II All-American that was part of an offense that averaged over 250 rushing yards per game and just won a Division II national championship. Couple things I like. 165, 335 pounds. This is a physically imposing specimen on the offensive line. And Dill, he's been a part. Division II, Division I, FBS, Power 5, G5. He's been a part of national championship culture. He's won 3 national championships at the Division II ranks. He's going to fit right in with this Michigan program. So those are some of the things that I like about Lawrence Hattar. Want to have 2 different conversations. One, Lawrence Hattar, from what we saw from him, what do we think about him playing at Michigan? And then I think, secondly, how's this offensive line shaking out for Michigan in the 2025 year? Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Michigan fans, it's been a blast talking this program. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas means the world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, any information that the Michigan fans have on this kid that we don't talk about, let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys, Dill. Without further ado, I'll give you the T-box. Lawrence Hattar, how are we feeling about it?
Yeah, and this is one that honestly I'm kind of in the boat of trust Sherrone Moore because I'm kind of watching these games. Doesn't feel like a premier athlete at the position, if you will, like the foot speed and the quickness. Again, obviously he was physically imposing himself at the D2 level. You can tell by that size. So he has that, but it is an interesting one to me because Brady Norton certainly playing at low levels of football. When you turn the tape on, you're like, oh, this is a very, very athletic kid. Lawrence Hattar is a little bit different, but again, it all comes down to me trusting Sherrone Moore to do what he thinks is best for this team, and especially do what he thinks best is for this offensive line because he's done a really, really good job building some really physical, nasty units.
And he knows how to evaluate talent. A lot of the really good offensive linemen that we've seen play at Michigan, they weren't the bona fide blue chip 5 stars coming out of high school. Sherrone Moore has a knack for saying, hey, we like what we see in this kid. We can maybe clean some things up when they get to Michigan and maybe create a really good offensive lineman. And Dill, I kind of got the same impression. I watched him play against Valdosta State, and I'm saying, do I necessarily think he's a lock to come in and start for Michigan in 2025? No, probably not. But there are some really intriguing things, and it does start with the size. And at the very least, you're injecting some competition. You start kind of expanding this conversation to, hey, what's this Michigan offensive line going to look like in the 2025 season? Look, from what we saw from Andrew Sprague as a true freshman playing against Alabama in that bowl game, I feel damn confident that in 8 months, he's going to be a really good right tackle for Michigan. You look at Evan Link, who no doubt started the season off a little bit choppy. Dill, Evan Link, he gave up 2 sacks and 27 quarterback pressures in the 2024 season. Kind of an underrated storyline. The last 3 games, 0 sacks and only 1 pressure. This was a kid that got better as 2024 went on. I feel pretty good about Evan Link starting a left tackle. Then you look on the inside, Greg Kripp and Giovanni Ohadi. We kind of know what we have it there. We're kind of trying to fill that void of Josh Preeb. He's going to come in and compete, probably with guys like Nathan Afobe, maybe a guy like Jake Guanera, Luke Hamilton. But at the end of the day, you're creating, one, the depth on the offensive line, which we all know matters a bit, especially at Michigan, it matters. But I think just as importantly, that competitive depth where, hey, if you want to play at guard for Michigan, you better be damn good because we're bringing in a Division II All-American that's played some really good football over the last couple of years.
And the one thing that stands out is trying to get a little bit of age in that room because with guys
Agreed.
like Dominic Whittice moving on and Raheem Anderson moving on, like
Yeah.
again, you like the young talent. There's
Oh, yeah.
probably a reason those two guys decided to look elsewhere. But at the end of the day, aside from Crippen and El Hadi, it would be a pretty young unit. And again, like young, talented guys who I think most Michigan fans are excited for. And frankly, like I want to see a Phobia out there. I want to see a Guinera, one of those guys kind of take the reins, if you will, at that left guard spot. But you still don't mind having another older veteran presence in that room because, again, it is very, very young outside.
And he's kind of a rogue grader. And Dill, we've seen Michigan go to those 6 offensive line sets, and Andrew Gentry, another really big body, was used in that situation. I wonder if that could be Lawrence Hattar for Michigan in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely make sense because, like, again, they like to play a lot of guys, and he doesn't stand out as like quite the athlete that would, fit on certain teams. But Michigan doesn't exactly ask their offensive linemen to be hyper athletes; they want them to be super physical. So again, as much as there might be athletic deficiencies to an extent, at least from my rather untrained eye, so like, who am I to necessarily make that judgment? But like,
again,
I think he fits the system at least.
And that's the conversation worth having. Is hey, we're sitting here and look, 40 minutes ago, I've never heard of this kid. I'll be quite honest with you. I had to spend the last 40 minutes kind of reading about him, pulling up some clips I could find from YouTube. Sherrone Moore, no doubt, seen this kid for multiple years, has probably had staff members that in person evaluated him throughout the 2024 season. And again, Michigan's talent evaluation and development on the offensive line has been top notch across the country. So if this staff likes him, and this staff thinks they can bring him in and he can add value, whether it's depth, whether it's a starter on the offensive line. Hey, I ain't going to argue with what Sherrone Moore does and how he runs this offensive line. Wanted to kind of get up, talk about it, kind of allowed for an extended conversation about the offensive line, which I'll end on in saying the offensive line to start 2024 was probably not what a lot of us expected. I think a lot of optimistic Michigan fans were like, hey, we're losing all starting 5 of our offensive linemen. We got a lot of guys we like. We're going to immediately reload it. It's just not how it works. It's a continuity position, and having 5 new faces on the offensive line, still having some position battles that were kind of working out specifically at center. We shouldn't have expected this offensive line to click right away. What excites me going into 2025 is you're returning a lot of guys. You have a lot of young guys in the pipeline. It's going to be a smoother transition into the 2025 season than it was in 2024.
I also think having a quarterback who is competent will make a huge difference because when teams didn't really have to honor anything besides like the inside run game, it's really, really hard to play football when you can't be moderately kind of varied in what you do. So as much as like the offensive line, I didn't think it like looked great for the first couple weeks, obviously either. But I do think everything kind of rises when you have quarterback play that is not so substandard to what Michigan like basically had to run a high school offensive attack.
Agreed. He's going to be a fun one to watch in the spring game. They just kind of get the sense of how does he translate from Division II to the Big Ten. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it again. To the Michigan fans, the support's meant the world. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.